All right, I think we can go ahead and get started. Welcome, everybody. We're here to share some more information with you about the Master of Science in Data-Enabled Computational Engineering and Science. I'll hand things over to Mike Donahue to talk some more.
Thank you so much, Victoria. So why don't we go to the next page, which is the agenda that we have. So I'm Mike Donahue. I am the program director for the computational engineering program here at Brown. I also teach at the undergraduate level and the graduate level, so I have a good sense of what the student experience would be. So what we're going to do is cover the program structure. We're going to spend time talking about Brown. We're going to go through the application requirements, and then we'll reserve time for Q&A at the end. However, like for my section, definitely feel free to interrupt me at any point in time, or just to ask a question in the tool that's available. We're happy, or I'm super happy to be able to do that. And then because basically I'll cover the program structure, and Victoria will go through the other sections and review that. So why don't we go to the student outcomes? Because I spent a lot of time advising undergraduate students and graduate students on what to consider as they look at different programs. Could we do the next page, please? The student outcomes. Thank you. So what I always start with is when students come to me of like they either want to look at a master's program or a PhD program, we always start with the first question that I ask, which is, what do you really want to achieve? So typically with certainly with master's programs, the big thing to do is really say, okay, what are the different options? And for us, we really designed this program or this master's program to really help people make the transition into their dream position. That dream position could be in the professional side. It could be in the technology industry. A lot of people are doing that, focus on the technology industry. They could also focus on research lab. There's a lot of master students that go into research lab. And then we have a lot of people that this is their testing of whether they want to do a PhD program. Because we all know, like a PhD program, it's a long journey, it's a big commitment, and it can be challenging at times to know if that's really what you want to do. So we have a ton of students where they use this program to really explore whether a PhD program is correct, or conversely, they're definitely set on getting into a PhD program. But what they find is that they didn't get admitted to their top program, the one that they were really interested in going into. So they say, okay, well, let me do this this master's program to increase my credentials of being able to get into the PhD program. We have had great success with people then going on into the PhD program, because the one thing that really surprised us was we thought there'd be more people going after the professional side, but there's actually more people doing the PhD program. So about 60% of our graduates go on for a PhD, and about 40% go on for the professional side. So it goes either way, but that's always the starting point when people are looking at master's programs. I'm always a big fan of like, okay, what's the outcome that you want to achieve, and the more that you can focus on that outcome, the better. So then let's go to the next slide. The next slide is really focused on. So if we agree that your two outcomes are either you want to go into the professional side or you want to go into a PhD program, what do we do to really help you achieve this outcome? So really, it comes most students that I find they always focus on like a course, like, okay, which courses will I take? Which of these courses translate into like marketable skills that I can use to either get into a PhD and other programs? And what I always try to do is have the students really think about more than just courses. So you've got the opportunity to do a thesis. We have students that do a thesis. These typically are people who want to go into the PhD program. But then again, if you want to go into industry, sometimes a thesis will help you in industry as well. So that's an option. But I would say, quite honestly, only about maybe 10 to 20% of our students choose to do a thesis. um, because they find that they can get to their outcome without doing a thesis. But it's an option. It's there for you if you want to. And then this thesis, it's definitely you get faculty supervision. So when you decide on your thesis topic, then we sit down with you and say, okay, well, what are you thinking about? And then we assign you a full professor to help you with your thesis. The other piece is work experience, because as we know, the world that we live in today is a world where people want to hire people who've been there, done that, meaning that they're just not looking for smart people that they'll train. They're looking for people who have the specific skills that they're looking for. And this applies, quite honestly, both on the professional side and also on the research side in the PhD, because that's where we also have research experiences. So for many students, they want to do a PhD. When they look at their PhD application, they ask for, like, tell us about your research experiences. And that's where, here at Brown, we are huge fans of allowing people to have research opportunities. Because even if you're not doing a thesis, you can definitely find research opportunities, because we love having master students do research. We love having actually undergraduate students do research as well. So we're a research-driven institution. That's one of the things that's very different for us. Now, the other thing that we try to do is provide additional support beyond those four items into PhD workshops. So for those of you that are interested in doing a PhD, we really try to demystify the PhD process or the application process. And I do a ton of advising for PhD applicants, because actually yesterday I just had the deep dive for somebody who's applying. She's in physics, wants to apply for a PhD. So we're spending a lot of time doing that. So I just reviewed her rough draft of her application. So we believe, going to get a PhD, it's a bit of a team sport. So we try to help our students to be able to do that. And it was funny because she's the nicest person in the world. She's like, Mike, give me your feedback. And so we had an hour-long session where I gave her the feedback on how she could optimize her application. And she's got tons of time. She's got till December. So this is just the first step of a many-step review process that we'll go through. That's for if you're thinking about PhD. If you think about a career, we also have the School of Professional Studies. They have a whole career center. They do the same thing, where they have like workshops where they have like a schedule of events where you can actually go through and chat with them to really learn what it's like. Because getting a job, it's daunting. It's very daunting, especially I advise a lot of CS students, and they're going through a bit of a existential crisis with a lot of the tech firms, pulling back on the number of people that are doing coding. So it's a challenging environment. So the idea is you can get a job. It's just maybe a different way of thinking about obtaining a job. But anyways, those are all the 6 different ways that we support students to really achieve their outcome. So the next slide just kind of goes through and gives you a little bit of a thing that, like, okay, well, once you choose professional or PhD, then you can kind of curate your list of activities to be able to do it. The one thing I will point out on this slide is actually we do have courses that support your effort. So if you're doing a thesis, you can actually take 2 of your 8 credits and devote it to research for your thesis. So this is you being able to really spend time focused 100% on the research, maybe working in a lab, and then based upon that, you will get course credit for working in that lab or doing your research on your specific topic. So that's very beneficial for you when you're doing that. The other piece is, from a professional perspective, we also allow students to do what's called a co-op experience. So that's typically in like your second year in like the fall or spring semester. What you would do is you would find a job to work for a company of up to 6 months, where you're working for that company. And once again, you would get course credit for working with that company. In addition, quite honestly, you will get paid by the company to do the work. So it's kind of the double benefit of you get paid while you're doing the work there and then getting course credit. But now in that case, you only get one of your 8 courses that would give you credit from that perspective. But once again, the idea is that what you're going to do is really put together your journey while you're here at Brown and really selecting from the 6 different areas. Obviously, students focus a lot on courses, but in all these 6 different areas of areas that what you want to do to be able to be successful going forward. So, anyways, that's a plan. So let's go to the next slide because this is the slide that I like to use for the transition from like your undergrad experience to like a Brown master's, because we find that it's a bit of a jarring change to go from undergraduate STEM, because most of our students come from a STEM background. And so, what I would characterize undergraduate, it's relatively impersonal, very structured. I mean, you have many required classes. Yeah, like maybe like when I got my engineering degree, like I could like out of 4 years, I can choose like I don't know, maybe 4 to 6 classes, but that was about it. Like I didn't have to really spend much time thinking about what's going on. And then many times the required classes that I took, they were from like the School of Engineering. So I was only able to like, so if I wanted like a class in CS, I wasn't able to really go after and get a class in CS because it was limited in terms of what I could do. And obviously minimal advising because like what choices do you have? You have none. Like you just here's the program, here's the game plan, this is what you're gonna do. So off you go. Have fun with your experience. And that was the experience that I had. And as I've talked to students, that's kind of the experience still for most STEM undergraduate students. Now, Brown's different. Brown is very, very different. We're like the home of the open curriculum. So the world is your oyster. You can do basically whatever you want to do here. So what we find is we find it's very personal, meaning that we're a small student, school. Like for this program, we're gonna have like 20 students in this program. So versus a lot of even our peers, our Ivy League peers, there's Ivy League peers that have 200 students in these master's program, which is huge. That's huge from our state, but we're a small school, so we expect we'll get like 20 students. And so then, we really believe that you need a lot of advising as you're making this transition from, very little choice to like you choose every single one of your classes. There's nothing required. You have no requirements here at Brown for this degree, which is weird. Like people don't know why we do that, but we do that. So that's the structure that we have, which is very unstructured, no required classes. And then we actually allow you to take classes beyond the School of Engineering. So you can take, CS classes, you can take math classes, you can take applied math classes. At the end of the day, your academic advisor, whatever they will approve, that is your degree. I mean, that's at Brown. It's kind of weird in the fact that if you can convince your academic advisor to take a class in archaeology, awesome. Like, or, brain science. We've had some people do brain science. And that's totally fine. Once again, as long as you can put together, the logic and the reason for why you need that class. So I think the headline here is you get significant advising, maybe more than you want. But even like during the orientation session, I really spend time with students really diving in and getting into specifics around how to curate their experience. So anyways, that's a bit of the transition because many of the students that come to Brown, it's a bit jarring. So we try to just give people in this session a bit of a sense of what it would be, because this is a big differentiator for us. So let's go to the next slide. So basically with the program, we have a spring or fall intake. We can go it either way. Doesn't make a difference to us. We also, from a program length perspective, all you have to do is take 8 courses. It could be over 3 semesters, it could be over 4 semesters. It's kind of your choice as to whether you want to kind of rush to the program or whether you want to take more of a leisurely approach to going through the program. It's totally your course. Now, once again, you can also take more than 8 courses if you want. That's fine too. Like we have students that they like taking 9 or 10, and that's fine. Now you do have to pay for the extra courses, but that's up to you. That's your choice. Um, Basically, in terms of the key elements, it's the coursework, it's all the options that we talked about before. In terms of prereqs, a lot of people are like, well, what are you looking for? Are there specific requirements? And basically, we have predominantly admitted STEM people into the program. Actually, this spring there's a couple people that are not STEM that are making their case to be able to do that. And then we're open to that. We really, we're pretty open here at Brown of like, seeing the whole person, and that's where, and I'm happy actually with the people. I'm happy to give you guidance on like how to apply, how to approach this. Because like, there's no issue with me telling you, here's what we look for. Because like, I'm one of the people that make the decisions. So I can tell you specifically around what do we look for, and then especially like with like a non-STEM person, it's like, oh well, then even though we don't require GRE, it may be nice if you put your GRE quantitative score in there. That would be a way, because we have to say like, oh, will you be able to be successful, here at Brown, because our classes are a bit rigorous in terms of what they do, and then the GPA. But then in terms of STEM, we don't care. Like math, great. CS, great. Applied math, that's fine. Engineering, fine. All those things are totally fine. Or even any of the natural, any of the science side, that's fine. And then, we prefer a GPA above 3. If you have one below 3, you can justify it, you can talk about it, but that's, you probably want to talk about it um, in your application. But we're pretty loose on the requirements, and once again we want to go to a holistic review of your application. So let's go to the next slide. So around the distinctive elements, and these are just the ones that I would put out there. And actually, it's interesting because we just had our new class start, and they pretty much confirmed a lot of these different things. So basically, we're really good at delivering against the student outcome. So the idea is that you come here for a reason. It's really important to you, and we want to make sure that you achieve that. Now, what I will say is that many people come here and they change. Like they come here thinking that they're going to do a PhD and they change into industry, or quite honestly, vice versa, where they think they're going to go professional and then they go through the program and they find that their true love is PhD program. And we don't care. Like it's your journey, it's your choice. That's part of the reason why we have the flexibility is we know students come to grad school to like learn things about themselves. That's when I advise people or mentor people. That's what I really, focus in on is just like it's a journey of self-discovery. So who knows what you're going to discover about yourself, but I think that's many times like the huge benefit for getting a master's program. So that I think is important. Small program, like I said, about 20 to 30 students, so not huge. Now it's interesting because we believe, even though it's a small program, you get to network more than just the 20 to 30 students, because Brown is strange in the fact that our classes, our master's classes, we design them so that it's predominantly master's students, but it's also like available to PhD students as well. And every now and again, there will be an undergrad student in there as well. But there's a lot of times where actually, I was talking to one of the students recently where she just recently switched into, she wants PhD program. She went to a class where she was the only master students in the class. Every other student in the class were PhD students. So she really got like a real sense of what their world is like. So that's the thing, because not only can you hang out with master students, but even for the master students and the PhD students, but like for the math students, you'll find master students that are outside of just computational engineering. Because it could be BME, it could be any of the other engineering masters, it could be CS master students, it could be natural science master students. So that's where you get the larger network. Now, one of the big things, it's kind of a blessing and a curse, is you have tremendous flexibility. Like you can, like, and I'm going to go into a little bit later, like all the courses that you can take. But like for our program, there's over 100 courses that our students have taken. You would think like, oh, well, you only have to take 8, so it's gonna, maybe like there's only going to be 20 or 30 classes that students are interested in. But we did the analysis and assessment, and there's 100 and I think it was like 104 different courses that students take. So lots of options for you, but once again, you've got to make those decisions. Then there's lots of research opportunities. And then, as graduation from Brown, you get access to the alumni network. Usually that's one of the big things I focus students on is just finding alumni that can help you through the process. So anyway, those are the elements. Let's go to the next piece because this is a key piece, which is, faculty advising. They're the two academics. I'm the program director. Yuri and George are the academic directors, and those are the people that approve your plans. So my view is, as long as one of them approves it, you're fine. You don't need to get a consensus between the two of them. As long as one of them likes your plan, you're good to go. But that's what you'll find is that if anything, the students don't spend enough time with their academic advisors. But anyways, they're available to you. So let's go to start the transition. Next slide. I'm talking about courses. So as I talked about is that you can't take courses beyond the School of Engineering. So we actually require you to take courses in the School of Engineering, Applied Math, and the computer science area. So that's your choice, your decision as to which courses, but we kind of, like you being able to expand out beyond just the School of Engineering. Now let's go to the next slide and say, okay, well, what's really happened since we've had this program? This is my analysis. So we had 102 totally different courses that people have taken. And so what we find is that there's been 26 in applied math, 21 in CS, 36 in engineering, and 19 outside of these 3 years. Because that's the other thing too, is you can go outside of these 3 areas. And once again, as long as your academic advisor approves it, you're good to go. And then you can see that on average, the highest count is about 3.2 courses per student in engineering, 3 students in applied, or 3 courses in applied math, 1.2 in CS, and then like 0.7 in other, for a grand total of 8.1 courses. So you can see that on average, people do tend to take the 8 courses, but there are people that do go beyond. And what I try to do is give you a sense for the courses, a sense of like what courses are they taking. And this is the other thing too, is you'll find like deep learning or AI in both applied math, you'll find it in CS, you'll find it in engineering. Different flavors of it, but you will see that we have that. So that's something. Because and even like in this one other in the data 2060, they have machine learning from theory to algorithm. So you can even find AI ML stuff outside of that piece. So that's always a good thing to understand. But it was interesting during the orientation session. I did a deep dive on this topic, and the students loved it. they just loved having the ability to see what other students have taken and how to really frame it. So I would say that's something that we always have to help students with is really figure that stuff out. So now let's go beyond courses and talk about the co-op program on the next slide. So we actually have one faculty member, Ted Tracy, who's responsible for that. And I'm a big fan of like when you come on campus, get to know Ted because he's a person that leads this. He comes from industry, so he spent most of his career in the tech industry. He teaches 2 excellent courses at the graduate level, so he's really good from that perspective. But once again, we have the option to to help students be able to do this. And for students, it's one of those things where we have a number of companies that we recommend and that have done co-ops with us before. But at the end of the day, if you can bring like a company to this and you find a great opportunity, awesome. Like we'll do that. So it's something that we're very flexible on. So that's a program that has been it's actually brand new. We've just started this for the DECES program this year. But already I think we have like 4 students enrolled in it, so it's been very popular. The next page really talks about the opportunities for you to learn about it. And so we have the School of Professional Studies has all these information sessions for these programs. So this is one that was done on September 22nd, where they brought alumni back to really talk about their experiences with this. And then so you kind of see some of the different companies that are there represented that have had co-ops with us before. But we have like a list of, I think it's like, 50 different companies that we've worked with in the past. So you can choose from that, or once again, find your own journey. The next piece is research options. So the students are always, questioning like, okay, well, how do I do research? And so it really comes into the buckets of like, which labs can you do? And really any lab within applied math, engineering, computer science, or quite honestly, others, like people that want to do brain research. We have the Carney labs, which that's a good area to go into. But my recommendation is always like do the research, find the lab that suits you and that you're interested in. And then the second piece is really finding the funding for it. So to get a paid position. So it could be lab funded. There are things called UTRAs here. There's the Hazeltine Innovation Fund. So there's many different ways for you to be able to fund actually getting paid to do the research. And the process I always recommend is first, find the research lab that you're interested in, then go to the professor or actually go to the postdocs or PhD students in there, and then start identifying the 3 to 5 labs, and then just go see if there's a position that's available. And usually, once again, it's a small university. It's pretty easy to talk to people and find out what options are for you. And so the next slide is this is more of a curated research option where basically we put this program together where it's a specific program for first year master's students. And so the idea is you get accepted into this program and then you get the training and then actually a ton of presentation and hands-on training within the technology sandbox that we built in the Prince Lab. So this is a little bit more of a formal program to be able to do that. So another resource for you to explore. So next slide really talks about the key people. So these are all your research or all your people within this program. So we've got from an administration perspective of if you're an international student, you have questions, and Jennifer's your person. Anne's a person that really has any questions within the program itself. Joel is if you have any questions about the academic side. And then from career, we've got Ted, we've got Kamal, we have Shijin, based upon like which career options we want to choose. And then for the program itself, it's myself and then the 2 academic directors. So lots of people. So for like the 20 to 30 people, you have a lot of people to go to. So now I'll turn it over to Victoria to talk about Brown University.
Awesome, thanks. So if we want to go to the next slide, I want to talk a little bit more about Brown. My name is Victoria Bray. I'm the Associate Director of Recruitment, and we've got a lot of master specific resources to share with you. So if we want to go to the next slide. Just a little bit about Providence. So this program's a residential program, so it'll require you to move to, if you're not already in the area, Providence, Rhode Island. Great city to live in, especially as a student. Lots of stuff to do. Cities on a river. We have a lot of events that sort of center around the river. We've got a lot of pedestrian footpaths that you can use. It's easy to walk, drive, bike. Lots of bike paths all over the place. Lots of really great food as well. Somebody shared a fun fact with me recently recently that Providence has more food per capita than New York City does, which is pretty cool. We have a culinary institute in the area, so lots of folks starting restaurants, really vibrant art scene as well. We have the Rhode Island School of Design right in the city, so we get free entry to a lot of museums in the area. Um, a little bit further afield, we have the beach. If you want to drive or take the bus, it's really easily accessible from Providence. Easy to get to and from Boston as well. We're really well situated in the Northeast between and among a lot of the major cities. So it's about an hour and 15-minute train ride to Boston, a couple of hours to New York. But then even if you wanted to go to someplace like DC for the weekend, it would be really easy to get there by train. So if we want to go to the next slide. Here are the neighborhoods in Providence. This makes it look like, it's a huge city, but in actuality, really very small. The areas with the little hearts over them are the areas where our students really frequent the most. So the neighborhoods around College Hill is the main area where Brown is located, but Brown has a pretty wide footprint throughout the city of Providence. The Division of Masters and Professional Programs is located in downtown in the Jewelry District. Lots of students live there. We have some housing available for graduate students there. But as far as apartments, students moving to the area, generally living downtown, College Hill, Wayland Square, Fox Point areas. But of course, if you wanted to live a little bit further out, you could certainly do that. And you can take the Rhode Island Public Transit Authority buses to campus for free. So if we want to go to the next slide. Lots of centers and offices as well. So these are resources available across the Brown community. We put on a lot of programming associated with the centers and offices. They have resources for all of our students. So my office is the Center for Master Student Excellence. It houses all of the master's specific student resources. But then, of course, we have student health and wellness, where, if you need to see a doctor or a nurse or counseling services, anything like that. Office of Chaplains and Religious Life. Office of Diversity and Inclusion puts on a lot of programming and also has a lot of physical spaces available for all of our students on campus. The Sheridan Center for Teaching and Learning is a great resource if you ever need any sort of writing center help. If there's a English language program that the Sheridan Center puts on before classes start in the summer. So all in all, a really good place to start if you need any help in the classroom. And then the Undocumented First Gen College and Low Income Student Center, UFly, we'll put on a program actually in a couple weeks here to talk about the first gen college experience for our master's students. So then if you want to go to the next slide. I was talking earlier about master's specific resources that we have at Brown. One of the things that makes us unique in the landscape of master's programs in the United States is that we have specific things for our master's students, only for our master's students, sort of in recognition of the fact that our master's students are only with us for 2 years. Undergrads have 4, PhD students have up to 5. So we really recognize that in terms of networking, career support, professional development, you really need to hit the ground running. So we have academic resources, student services, student affairs. We put on a lot of programming across campus in collaboration with offices as well as academic departments to help with career search and also just sort of help socializing, networking, bringing speakers to campus, things like that. And then, of course, in times of need, we're here for you. So our student affairs team is also there if you ever were to need to take a leave of absence, accommodations in the classroom, and things like that. If we want to go to the next slide. I want to talk a little bit more about our career and professional development since that's so crucial to our outcomes. The Division of Masters and Professional Programs has a lot of career resources. We put on resume writing workshops, cover letter writing. They'll help you with salary negotiation, interview prep, individual advising for you to help you navigate your career search, networking. You'll also have a STEM specific career advisor. We have a STEM specific career advisor in the Division of Masters and Professional Programs who's there to help all of our students in STEM designated programs. You can visit the Master's Career website if you want to get an idea of sort of what that programming looks like on a day-to-day basis. My tip for you as you're searching for master's programs, especially if you're planning to do a residential program, is to really get an idea of what is offered. Go to events at Brown or whatever the equivalent is at other places to get a sense of what a day in the life of your master's program might be. I know at Brown we have a ton of programming available that ranges from bringing speakers to campus to free food to the career support and professional development that we're talking about here. We have layers of support. So, beyond the Division of Masters and Professional Programs, of course, your department is an excellent resource. There's folks who've worked in industry, professors of the practice, who have connections who can help you sort of understand how your master's degree can help position you really well in the job market. We also have the Center for Career Exploration, who puts on career fairs and helps network with alumni and companies who want to hire Brown students. And then, of course, one of the benefits of attending Brown is that really we have a really robust alumni network that you have access to for your entire life. And our alumni are really engaged and helpful in the networking process. So if we want to go to the next slide, I want to talk a little bit more about the application process. So if we go to the next slide, this is sort of a high level overview of what we consider when we look at your application. So we look at all the components of your application to get a sense of your academic readiness. Of course, we'll look at your GPA, but your academic record is more than just your GPA. It's also the grades that you've gotten in engineering related courses, specifically the courses that you've chosen to take as an undergraduate student. We want to make sure that you're demonstrating a strong quantitative background, a strong engineering background. To make sure that you're going to be academically successful in the program. We'll look at your research and work experience. It's not required, but it really adds layer to your application to get a sense of what you might be interested in doing when you join Brown's master's program. Your goals, which will be outlined in your personal statement, they help us understand your interest in computational engineering and how Brown can help you with that interest and your goals as they pertain to the program. We want to make sure that we're setting you up for success by admitting you to our program. We'll look at your letters of recommendation, which can help speak to you as a member of a professional community, class community. They'll give a detailed recommendation, hopefully, beyond just, this student got top 10% marks in my class. We really want to hear from somebody who can speak to you more personally than that about how you'll be successful in a master's program. And then again, we want to make sure that you're meeting those prerequisite requirements, that you have a background in math, statistics, so that we know that you'll be academically successful in the program. So we can go to the next slide. Here is an overview of what we're going to require for you to submit as a part of the application. We'll go in depth on a couple of these items in a few slides, but we want your transcripts, of course, from anywhere that you've attended post-secondary school. For your application, we don't need your official transcripts, but we will need your unofficial transcripts. Your official transcripts will be submitted at the time of matriculation. For anybody who attended an institution outside of the United States, we will not require a credential evaluation as a part of your application. However, again, if you do end up matriculating at Brown, we'll end up requiring you to submit a credential evaluation for your degree conferral. You're going to submit your CV or resume, which outlines that work experience, your personal statement, which will outline your goals, experiences, interest in Brown, and interest in this specific program. We require 3 letters of recommendation. We cannot consider applications that have fewer than 3 letters of recommendation. So keep that in mind as you're navigating asking for those letters. I get a lot of questions. If I have 2 really good letters of recommendation, do I still need to submit that third? Yes, it's a policy at Brown University. We can't consider your application unless you have all 3. If you do not speak English as your native language, you might be required to submit either the TOEFL or the IELTS to satisfy your English language proficiency requirement. And then also notably, we do not require the GRE for our School of Engineering programs. So we can go to the next slide. Dates and deadlines to keep in mind. We have 2 intakes, fall and spring. If you're interested in applying for spring, there's still time, depending on where you're coming from. But November 1st will be that deadline. And then the priority deadline for fall entry is February 1st. So definitely keep in mind, my biggest tip for students applying to master's programs is to keep in mind that dates, deadlines, and requirements are going to vary not just from school to school, but program to program within the same school. So make sure you're keeping track of those dates, deadlines, and requirements. We can go to the next slide. So I said talking earlier, we do not require the GRE, but if you don't speak English as your native language and you do not have a degree from an institution where English is the sole language of instruction, we will require you to submit English language proficiency exam scores. The only tests you can take to satisfy that requirement are the TOEFL and the IELTS. You can see the recommended minimum scores for the School of Engineering programs on the screen, but just keep that in mind if you're interested in applying to build in plenty of time to take that exam. Again, if you are a non-native English speaker and do not have a degree from an institution where English is the sole language of instruction, if you are a student who, let's say, speaks Spanish as your native language, but you have a degree from an institution in Australia, the English-speaking parts of Canada will waive that requirement because you have a degree from an institution where the sole language of instruction is English. So we can go to the next slide. Some important timeline next step items. Definitely want to start your application if you haven't already, especially if you're interested in applying for spring. We have a lot of events happening, both within the School of Engineering, but then also we have an event series where we're inviting folks from across Brown University to join us to talk more about how their programs serve master's students. You can also schedule a time to talk with Mike. This QR code links to Mike's calendar. So if you want to schedule a time to talk more to him about the School of Engineering programs, life at Brown, anything like that, he's a great resource. Of course, you can always email me as well, and I'm happy to connect you with folks across the university. You have until 2 weeks after the final deadline to finalize your application. So just make sure that those letters of recommendation are being submitted, and then keep in mind these final deadlines as well. So we can go to the next slide. Follow us on social media. Social media is a great way to get a sense of the types of programming that we offer, to see, what you might be doing a day in the life of a Brown student. And then on the next slide, we have some contact information for you. You can email us at masters_events@brown.edu, and we can help you find anything that you're looking for at Brown. But then you can view our programs at masters.brown.edu. So that being said, I think we're ready to take some questions. Folks are welcome to submit questions into the chat. We'll answer those. But then I know some folks might have asked questions in advance of the session, so I will also pull those up right now. So one of the questions that we have is about the fifth year option at Brown. This is an option that's only available to current Brown undergraduate students, and whether or not it applies to recent grads or alumni. So if there's anybody on the call who's a current undergraduate student, yes, we have a fifth year program. However, unfortunately, for this student, we cannot consider folks who've already graduated. You have to be a current Brown undergraduate student to be eligible for that program. That being said, if you have any questions, you can of course reach out to me directly. I'm going to be hosting some fifth year specific advising and information sessions, so I'll put my name in the chat, or my email address, I should say. Mike, questions about the landscape for funding for the computational engineering program. The vast majority of our master's students are self-funded. However, do you want to talk a little bit more about specifically computational engineering?
Yeah, no, it's a great question because I think that's an important issue as you think about your master's program is really just how to fund it because that gets back into the the outcomes that you're trying to achieve. So as Victoria stated, the vast majority of our students are self-funded. We do have some scholarships available. It's mostly based on a financial need perspective. So as you're doing the application, I think there's some boxes that you can check to really say that you would like to be considered for financial need, and then you'll have to supply some additional information that we'll use because it's a very objective criteria where it's basically, we do have limited funds, but we do try to give it to people that need it from a financial perspective. So that is definitely available. And then if you want to talk specifically to me about that scholarship, I'm happy to spend time with you on that piece. The other thing is that students they will look to additional sources of funding, which could be a teaching assistant in classes. So you can become a teaching assistant, get paid for that. You can do research, you get paid for that. And also then co-op experiences or internship experiences where you get the income from that piece to help offset the cost of the program. So those would probably be the primary funding vehicles for students as they think about the masters here at Brown.
Fantastic, thank you. So those are the two questions that were submitted in advance. If anybody who's on the call wants to submit a question, You're more than welcome to. Give folks just a minute.
Yeah, and feel free to, any question is it's on the table. It's like this is your opportunity to really not you're not going to be judged by the question that you have, or there's no question that isn't off the table. So, and then especially as it relates to the application.
Ooh, we have somebody who's raising their hand who I can unmute to ask.
Thank you, Victoria. Thank you, Michael, also for the informational session. I wanted to ask regarding application fee waivers. I wanted to know if that's available. So on the grad school application fee waivers page, basically it shows that the information on that page is for applicants to doctoral and MFA programs. So I wanted to know if it applies to this master's degree.
Yeah, that's a great question. And apologies, I should have covered this at the top of the session, but by virtue of the fact that you are attending this session, we're going to mark you as attended. You'll automatically receive a fee waiver from us. So you'll get a follow-up message probably sometime tomorrow once everything sort of processes. But there's no like code that you would use. There's nothing additional you need to do. You simply won't be prompted to pay a fee when you go to submit your application. And that's for any application that doesn't use Sophis as the application service. So that's the system that we use for our School of Public Health. So as long as you're applying to a School of Engineering program, then we can waive that application fee based off of your attendance to this session.
Okay, thank you very much for that explanation. I have kind of an issue. Okay, I don't think it's an issue. The email I used to sign up is not the email I'm using to attend the session. I'm assuming that the application fee waiver will be sent to the email I used to this email, but then you don't have it on your end. So will
Yeah,
there
I
be
put
any
my email
issue?
address in the chat. If you want to email me directly, just to connect all the dots, then we can do that on the back end to make sure that you get the fee waiver.
Okay, all right. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. We've got Seth too with his hand up. Hi, Seth.
Yeah, hi. Thanks for everything here so far. I've got two questions. One is just a follow up on funding. This is kind of a subjective question, but regarding TA positions and research positions, I'm just wondering how common those are and like how much you can really kind of try to make that a job, or is that not so feasible with your coursework? Um, is it hard to get some of these positions? Yeah, again, subjective, but I'm just wondering what that looks like.
Yeah, no, the great question. It really is dependent upon the individual in terms of what they prefer to do. But generally, there's a number of teaching assistant positions that are open. What I always and then there's typically when you come on campus for orientation, there's a website you can go to really find out what positions are available. Now, alternatively, what I'm always a big fan of is just reaching it. Like if there's a class that you want to be a teaching assistant for, you should reach out to the professor themselves to then see if, because there's many times where like the professor may put it in the system, they may not. It may be more informal. So you can always go through and ask the professor because then many times they like even if they don't have a position, they can get a position and have you be a TA. It's pretty common that because a lot of like for most of my like I had a class where I had like 60 teaching assistants. So there's usually ample opportunities for teaching assistants to be able to do that. And then research, probably there's actually probably more opportunities for research and more funding available for research positions, just because we are a research driven institution. But once again, it's kind of the same thing where there would be information available as to what research positions are available, but then it's kind of like Victoria and I were talking before the call. There's like the secret network within Brown of like you just have to reach out to professor, show an interest in the lab, and then you can, even if the lab doesn't have funding, get like ultra funding or other, or even like I'm a big fan of like the Barrett Hazeltine scholarship, which is it's basically a professor here that has like this bucket of money that if you go to him and say like, hey, I want to do research in this area, he will say, okay, great, here's some money for you. Because actually, I had a student this summer where she was looking for funding, and so she was able to get funding from Barrett Hazeltine for her opportunity. So there's always like hidden ways being able to to do that. But does that answer your question, Seth?
Yeah, that does. Thank you. So it sounds overall feasible and common enough, right?
Yeah,
Cool.
that's a great way to summarize it.
Yeah, yeah,
100%.
thank you. Can I go on to ask a second one, or should I kind of?
Sure.
Okay, cool. Um, so I'm just wondering kind of what you look for in backgrounds. And I know you mentioned accepting wide variety of backgrounds, which is great. I'm wondering how much in this wide variety of backgrounds you still look for specific experiences in some sort of computational engineering. So like, I mean, personally, I am coming from a STEM background, but not necessarily tailored at all in computational engineering. If you're taking people without a STEM background at all, like, do you look for personal projects? Do you just look for a really clear interest? Like, how do you gauge that?
Yeah, no, it's an excellent question because that's really what we focus on. Because first, when I'm looking at an application, I want somebody to be able to clearly articulate why they want to go into like the specific outcome. So it could be like I'll give you an example. Like so, there's one woman, she was CS, so in the STEM field, and she wanted to go to a Formula One team to be a computational fluid dynamics expert. You know, because right now within Formula One teams, you know, most of the winning teams are the ones that are the best at aerodynamics. So she had no like fluid dynamics in her background. She had no experience with a lab in fluid dynamics. But she had a great story, and she had you know the STEM degree. And yeah, is it a hard transition to go from CS into engineering? Yes, but we look at her, you know, academic experience, and then you know her grades and everything else, and then her story made sense. So not, and it's a crazy story in the fact that she came over to Brown, and she decided against going to Formula One. Now she wants to be a PhD or get a PhD in computational fluid dynamics. So in that case, she had no experience in the field, but it's a great reason to go get a master's because for her to go into computational fluid dynamics without this master's degree, impossible. But with this master's degree, absolutely. And so what she did, she was the one this summer where she went and worked in a research lab with this big, massive wind tunnel. So all she did was did experiments in this wind tunnel. Has she ever seen a wind tunnel before? No. Has she ever like done any of these computations? Not at all. But she convinced the professor. So she was the one that took the one class where she was the only master students. All the other people were PhD students. So it's really more like aspirationally, what do you want to do? And then can you make your case that you have the intellectual horsepower to be successful? Because you know people do feel that it's a bit of a transition going from their undergrad experience into this, especially like on the because we tend to be a little bit more theoretical, even on the math and applied math side, where the comments I get back from students is like, "Wow, your math is harder than what I experienced before." Well, once again, it's like we want to support your journey. So the most important thing is have this vision for what what you want your future to be, and then even if you have no experience in that area, that you have the ability to be able to achieve that. So does that help, Seth?
Yeah, definitely. Thanks. I like the story. It's encouraging. So yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
No, that's what I was
yeah, because
wondering. Thank you.
that's what we look for is helping do that. So maybe go to the kids. So Sandy in the Q&A session, she ended up saying she had a few questions. Do all reference letters need to be submitted by the application deadline? For example, February 1st. And the answer is no. It's like, you know, it'd be nice if they're all submitted, and we do try to encourage because a lot of times that's the last thing we're waiting for. It's the letters of recommendation. And that's why Victoria emphasized that. So if there's any guidance I would give to students is really encourage your professors or the people that are giving your letters of recommendation to be able to submit them on time. And then we actually do, like I will reach out to people and say, oh, by the way, we need your letter to evaluate this candidate. So we do that. But I kind of go back to, because I write a ton of letters of references, and even for now, like with the PhD students that I'm working with, or like, and I've gotten people into, let's say, I've got Fulbright scholars, I've got Rhodes scholars, I've got people that got into Stanford, Harvard, MIT. The key thing is like work with your professor or whoever to help them with the process, and students who prepare me for like, what do they want me to talk about, like what do they want me to do. So I think that's what I would recommend for the reference letters. Then two, are the students selecting courses from Harvard before? I see this is info on the file wipes. Yeah, we do have a program. It's a great question, because we do have a relationship with Harvard where you can take grad level classes from Harvard. Now, what you have to do is you have to convince your academic advisor why that course is not available at Brown. So yeah, of course, you have access to all the Harvard graduate courses, but then you have to convince your academic advisor to approve it. So you can do that 100%. And additionally, this is a great point. What Victoria was talking about, like our location, we're in the northeast part of the U.S. We also have people do research, not at Brown, but they will do research at like MIT or Princeton or Harvard. And once again, that we actually have opportunities where you can take the funding that Brown gives you and use it at, like, because I did that with a student this summer where she wanted to do research at Princeton. She convinced the Princeton faculty member to support her research, and then she got funding from Brown to actually work in the Princeton lab. So just some additional insight into that. But great question, Sandy. Thank you for that.
No worries.
Imad,
Yeah, that's yeah. Thank you so much.
did that answer it, Sandy, or are there things that I
Yes.
left out?
Yes. Thank
Okay,
you.
thank you. Great question. Excellent question. So Imad, what's your question?
Hey there. So my question, as someone who's pretty confident that they want to do a master's in this field, but also not super certain on how exactly that would manifest, how do you recommend for someone going about that, like communicating that in like a statement of purpose, right?
Yeah.
Balancing
No,
the
this is great. This is a great question. I love this. The idea is you may be uncertain as to it, but just pick something. Just like, it's almost like today, this minute, this second, like, what's your passion? What do you think would be interesting for you? Much like the example I gave you, like, oh, she picked, like, she wanted to work for a Formula One team. She wanted to do computational fluid dynamics. And for us, like, yes, we can help you get that. She changed. She changed like midway through into, like, I want to do a PhD in computational fluid dynamics. The idea is it doesn't need to be perfect. It just gives us a sense. You're really just answering the question of, like, why do you need this degree? You know, to say, like, you have an existential crisis and you're going to use this degree to find yourself. We don't like that. That's hard for us to judge whether we're going to be able, because really for us, like, what we're trying to do is make sure that we can achieve your personal objectives. Now, I would say it's probably 50% of the students, they come into the program knowing exactly what they want to do. They submit their course plan, they never change it. For the other 50%, they come into the program thinking they know what they want to do, and they change. And so, like, literally every semester, we're approving a new course plan, which that's okay. That is fine. We know that happens all the time, and we're suited to be able to be flexible with doing that. So that's okay. But my guidance to you is pick something that would make sense to the people that are reviewing your application. Does that make sense? Is that clear?
Yeah, thanks. That's super helpful.
Okay. Yeah. But you can change. Okay, Seth, what do you have for us?
Sorry, I remembered another one. Hopefully this will be quick. What is the priority deadline application? Like, what does that mean to be a priority applicant or whatever?
So basically with the priority application, what we do is we just, all the applicants that have submitted by that deadline, then we review those applicants, and we make a decision because we have like these applicant review parties where we just go through and in a day, because there's just three of us that do the review. So we sit there and once again we have a conversation around each candidate, and then so what happens is you apply early, so then we can give you a decision early, so then you have certainty around that piece. And that's where you're really even, I'm a big fan of, if there are things where you need even earlier decision, we're happy to do that because we do have the flexibility. You just reach out to us and tell us. But that's all it is. It just gives you certainty around, okay, you got into Brown, and then you can have that. So it's almost like, it's not the same thing as early decision at the undergraduate level, but it's kind of similar in the fact that you get certainty around it, so you're in the program earlier than waiting. So that's really the only difference that I see it. So we just add time to review them early. Does that
It
make
also
sense?
allows you to enroll early, Mike, right?
Oh
Which
yeah,
you get
that's true
access to
too.
like housing wait lists early when they
Yeah,
open. You don't
yeah.
have to wait. So that's the other piece is for you. It's beneficial because you're able to access Brown's resources, get
Yeah,
your
no,
email
because we do
address.
get, and even to the point, Victoria, that's a really good point. Because what happens, I get like people who are like, Mike, I'm trying to find a roommate, or trying to find this, or I'm trying to find that. And it's the earlier that you register, then you can start, applying to housing and then finding roommates and all that kind of good stuff. But we do try to help people with roommate stuff and everything, but it's the earlier is better, because I have people this semester. We had two students where they were a little bit delayed in getting to the United States, and that was now they found everything worked out for them, but it took a bit of a challenge to address their questions, and we do have people to support them. But the more you can do it early, probably the easier it is. But
Definitely.
no, great questions. Excellent questions. Thank you. And once again, do the one, schedule time with me. I'm happy to sit down with you, because even people like, well, what about my GPA? What about this? I can tell you, like, I had one candidate where they're like, oh well, gee, I don't think I'm a good fit, because I don't know if my GPA is good. And the person had like a 3.8 in like applied math. It's like, you're fine. And then she's like, oh, but my GRE score is not good. So she told me her GRE score, to go, no, your GRE score is absolutely spot on with what we're looking for. So any of those questions, I'm happy to address those, because at the end of the day, we want to, my commitment is to the student of, we want to just make sure that you get out of it, what you want to get out of it. And then, like, for me, like, I love the advising of like students that come into the program, to really in their journey. I do a lot of advising where it's like, we every semester we sit down and figure out what they learn about themselves. And then I actually, like, every summer I take a trip. This summer I took it to LA, and I met with people who have graduated. And then we do advising afterwards, because a lot of times they'll do pivots, once they leave the program. So there's one person where she graduated 6 years ago, and so I met with her, and so we did that. And actually, there's another person where, like, she ended up going to Google, and she did software engineering for a bit. And then I kept pushing her. It's like, oh, Sagarika, you need to think about AI/ML. So then she didn't, she's very wary of doing that. So she made the transition at Google to AI/ML, and now that's like the hot spot. That's like for Google, that's all they're hiring in is in the ALML group. They're actually, I think they're now, because she moved from San Francisco to New York City, and then now it looks like New York City, they're moving people from DeepMinds, which is in London, over to New York. So that's becoming, and it was actually personally beneficial for her to move to New York, because there's a school in New York that she wanted her daughter to go to, so that worked out well. So we're always like, and even now she's looking at like, oh, Mike, should I switch out of the DeepMinds team and do something else? I was like, okay, fine, let's explore that. So once again, I'm a big fan. Life's a journey, so you never know what you're a good experience and what you'll learn about yourself through the process. But anyways, great questions. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, that's all the questions we have. We're a little bit over, so I appreciate everybody hanging with us, but especially Mike. Thank you so much for answering all the questions. My email address is in the chat. If anybody needs anything, you're welcome to reach out to us on that email address or masters_events. But thanks for joining and have a great rest of your day. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.